The city of Lagos buzzed with life under the golden glow of the evening sun. The crowded streets pulsed with honking cars, vendors calling out their prices, and children running in laughter. Among this chaos, Ada walked quietly, her simple modern dress fluttering in the warm breeze. She clutched her worn-out handbag tightly, ignoring the judgmental stares that followed her. Ada was intelligent, ambitious, and had dreams larger than the Lagos skyline, but her biggest obstacle wasn't poverty, it was the man she loved. Tund, her husband, was a successful banker with polished English, sharp suits, and a growing reputation in elite circles. To the outside world, he was charming and respectable, but at home, his pride often wounded Ada's heart. He mocked her thick accent, laughed when she mispronounced English words, and sometimes even corrected her in front of his friends. Each insult cut deep, but Ada endured, believing love meant patience. One evening, after a family dinner at Tund's parents' home, the ridicule became unbearable. His relatives, dressed elegantly in modern attire, laughed when Ada mistakenly said plint instead of print. Tund smirked and joined them, making a joke at her expense. Ada's smile froze as humiliation spread through her chest like fire. She excused herself and went outside, the laughter still echoing in her ears. Under the moonlight, she whispered to herself, "Someday they will see me differently." It wasn't anger she felt, but a powerful resolve. From that night, Ada made a silent promise. She would never let her weakness define her future. The next morning, Ada enrolled in a community English class taught in a small hall by volunteers. The room was filled with women and men from humble backgrounds, all dressed simply yet carrying fierce determination in their eyes. Ada sat in the front row, notebook ready, repeating each phrase with courage. But learning was not easy. The grammar rules confused her, the pronunciation twisted her tongue, and her classmates sometimes giggled. Still, Ada showed up every single day. She would practice words in front of the mirror at night, whispering lines as Tund slept soundly beside her. Even when he mocked her late-night studies, she refused to give up. Weeks turned into months. Ada's progress was slow but steady. One day, when a neighbor asked her for directions, she responded fluently without hesitation. The look of surprise on the neighbor's face filled Ada with quiet pride. Yet Tund remained dismissive. Why waste time? He would say, scrolling through his phone, "You'll never be perfect. Just stay quiet when educated people speak." His words hurt, but instead of breaking her spirit, they fueled her determination. She remembered her mother's old saying, "The one who laughs at you today may clap for you tomorrow." A turning point came when Ada's class received an opportunity to participate in a public speaking contest hosted by a local NGO. The hall was decorated with banners, the atmosphere filled with nervous excitement. Participants were to deliver a 3-minute speech on the future of African women. When Ada's name was called, her legs trembled as she walked to the podium. She could feel dozens of eyes on her, some expectant, some doubtful. Tund was not there to support her, but Ada remembered her vow. She took a deep breath, adjusted the microphone, and began. Her voice quivered at first, but as she spoke about resilience, hope, and the power of education, something changed. The audience leaned in. Her accent was still present, but her words carried strength, rhythm, and emotion. By the time she ended with, "We are not defined by where we start, but by how far we choose to rise," the hall erupted in applause. Tears welled in Ada's eyes. For the first time, she felt truly seen. That night, Ada returned home glowing with joy, holding the certificate she had received for most inspiring speech. She wanted to share it with Tund, but when she showed him, he only shrugged. "It's just a local event. Don't get carried away." Ada's heart sank, yet she refused to let his indifference dim her light. She pinned the certificate to the wall and whispered, "This is only the beginning." Ada's confidence grew. She began volunteering at the same NGO that had hosted the contest, helping women in rural areas learn basic literacy. Her modern gowns and stylish head wraps gave her presence, but it was her empathy that won hearts. Soon, she was invited to speak at small community events, then regional conferences. Each stage she stepped on, each microphone she held, chipped away at the memory of being mocked. She was no longer the quiet woman who hid in shame. She was becoming a voice others looked up to. But the greatest test came one evening when Ada was invited to a televised forum discussing women's empowerment in Africa. Sitting across from professors, activists, and journalists, Ada adjusted her blazer and spoke clearly, her voice steady. Tund watched from home, his expression unreadable as millions saw the woman he once ridiculed shine on screen. For the first time, the laughter he once joined had turned into applause, and yet Ada was not finished. One morning, as she prepared for another speaking engagement, an email arrived. The header read, "United Nations Invitation." Her breath caught. The UN had selected her as one of the keynote speakers for their global summit on women's rights. She dropped into her chair, tears streaming down her face. She whispered, "Mama, I did it." What Ada did not know was that this single moment would not just change her life, it would shake Tund's world forever. The morning of the United Nations Summit dawned with the first rays of sunlight brushing across the skyline of New York. The city buzzed with anticipation. But inside the Grand Hotel suite, Ada stood quietly by the window, her tailored navy gown flowing elegantly to the floor. She could see the United Nations headquarters in the distance, its tall glass facade reflecting the golden light of dawn. Her heart raced. This was not just another event. This was the moment the world would finally hear her voice. She clasped her notes, her palms sweating, then whispered to herself, "I am ready." Back in Lagos, Tund sat in his sleek living room, surrounded by polished furniture and expensive art. The television was tuned to the live broadcast. His friends had been teasing him for weeks. "Your wife is famous now." "Tund, how does it feel?" He had laughed it off, pretending not to care, but inside unease gnawed at him. The same woman he once mocked for her broken English was now standing before world leaders. His pride was at war with his regret. At the UN headquarters, the hall glittered with delegates from across the globe. The flags of nations lined the stage, and rows of officials in suits, gowns, and traditional attires filled the seats. Ada walked confidently onto the platform, every step echoing with the weight of her journey. Her braided hair was neatly wrapped, her jewelry subtle yet elegant, her presence commanding. Cameras flashed. The world leaned in. She adjusted the microphone, took a deep breath, and began. "Excellencies, distinguished guests, and my fellow Africans." Her voice was calm, resonant, and filled with emotion. She spoke about her childhood in Nigeria, about being ridiculed, about struggling to learn a language that was not her own. She painted vivid pictures of African girls denied education, of women silenced because of their accents, of dreams crushed under the weight of mockery. But she did not stop there. She told them about resilience, about communities rising together, about the power of believing in one's worth even when others laughed. Her accent was still there, proudly Nigerian, proudly African, but her words carried a force that silenced the hall. As she continued, the camera occasionally panned to the audience. Some nodded thoughtfully, others wiped tears. Back home, Nigerians crowded around televisions and phones, watching with pride. On social media, clips of Ada's speech spread like wildfire. From mocked wife to global leader, one headline read. Within minutes, hashtags with her name trended across Africa. Tund watched in silence. For the first time, he felt the weight of shame pressing on his chest. He remembered the night he had laughed at her in front of his relatives, the countless times he had told her she was not good enough. Each memory stung like a blade. As Ada's speech reached its climax, We must never let language be a barrier to our greatness. Our voices, in every accent, in every tongue, matter. The entire hall erupted in applause, a standing ovation that shook the building. Ada's eyes glistened as she bowed slightly, her smile radiant. That night, after the summit, Ada was surrounded by journalists, diplomats, and young women eager to meet her. Cameras flashed, microphones extended, and questions poured in. She answered with grace, her presence magnetic. She had become more than a speaker. She was a symbol of hope. Meanwhile, in Lagos, Tund paced the living room restlessly. The silence in his heart was deafening. For years he had believed that his polished English and wealth made him superior. But now the world bowed to the woman he once silenced. He sat heavily on the couch, whispering to himself, "I failed her." Weeks later, Ada returned home to Nigeria. The airport was crowded with supporters holding banners. "Ada, our voice, pride of Africa." She spoke for us. Dressed in a white modern gown, Ada waved warmly, smiling as cameras flashed. Tund stood in the crowd, not with pride, but with longing. He had come quietly, dressed in his usual sleek suit, his face hidden by dark glasses. As Ada passed by, their eyes met. For a brief moment, time stood still. She looked at him with calmness, not anger, but also without the love he once took for granted. At home, Ada's life changed forever. She was invited to serve on international boards. She launched her own foundation for women's literacy in Africa, and she became a mentor to thousands. She moved through boardrooms, classrooms, and conferences with grace, always dressed in modern African elegance, gowns, suits, and stylish head wraps. Her influence spread beyond borders, but Tund's world crumbled. The banker who once felt untouchable was now reduced to whispers. His colleagues often spoke of Ada's achievements in front of him, unaware of the wound it caused. At parties, people approached him not for his reputation, but to ask about his wife. The same arrogance that had once made him powerful now isolated him. One evening, unable to bear it anymore, Tund drove to Ada's office. She was reviewing proposals with her team, her office walls adorned with awards and photographs of her speeches. When she looked up and saw him, silence filled the room. She dismissed her staff gently, then turned to him. He looked smaller somehow, his eyes filled with regret. "Ada," he began, his voice breaking, "I was wrong. I see it now. The world sees you as I should have seen you from the beginning. Forgive me." His words trembled in the air. Ada studied him for a long moment. She remembered the tears she had shed, the humiliation, the nights of loneliness. But she also remembered her journey, her growth, and the strength she had gained. Finally, she said softly, "Tund, I forgave you a long time ago. But forgiveness does not mean returning to what broke me. I found my voice and I cannot silence it again." Her words hung in the air, final yet gentle. Tund lowered his head, tears brimming in his eyes. He knew he had lost her, not because she hated him, but because she had outgrown him. As the years passed, Ada continued to rise. She became one of Africa's most influential leaders, her speeches quoted in schools and her foundation empowering millions. Young girls in villages repeated her words with pride, "Our voices in every accent matter." She carried Africa's spirit to the global stage, proving that dignity and power lie not in perfection, but in resilience. And in quiet moments, when she stood before a mirror in her elegant gowns, she would smile faintly, remembering the woman she once was, ridiculed, underestimated, mocked. That woman had not vanished. She had transformed. She had become unstoppable. What do you think? Was Ada right to keep Tund out of her life forever, or should she have given him another chance? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.